Dear listeners, before we start today's story, big shout out to Travis Davis, aka Malicious Logic 37, for writing this amazing story. We have also started working on our other two channels, Lost Relation Chronicles and Fright Chronicles. Please show your love by subscribing to the channels and help us grow. The links are in the descriptions box. Now let's start with today's story. Harold Jacobs never really considered himself as anyone important, or special for that matter. Sure, he dealt with people of all shapes, colors, and ego. That was usually the norm in his field, security officer. Armed or not, people see them as buzzkill, the people who tell you, you can't do that. And we don't want to deal with the paperwork of you being injured for doing something stupid. He stayed active after his high school years and went to the gym regularly. He had to with his line of work, with the number of fights he had to break up, or unruly parents and guests he had to escort out of hospitals, bars, events, and business offices of all type. It came with the job, but he was good at it. But despite its flaws, he did enjoy it. He also enjoyed the fact that because of it, he can provide for his family. His loving wife, Sandra Marie Jacobs, was 5 feet 6 inches with a lean build, the face of an angel. She was beautiful, and despite being in her mid-30s, she could pass for someone in her early 20s. Sandra was still beautiful despite having their daughter so young, and she maintained it by going to the gym regularly. Harold met Sandra in high school. Harold and Sandra were both 18 when their daughter Rebecca was born. With the help of their families, Harold and Sandra were able to care for Rebecca until they graduated and moved into their own home. They ended up getting married after graduation, because despite what people may have thought, they did love each other. Harold ended up joining the army soon after, but only served 4 years in service. He ended up getting a security job with the local armored truck service and has been in the field since. Eventually, he made his way to become the regional director in the northeast of the U.S. for a large security company that was world-known. Being one of the youngest with over 10 years under his belt, Sandra worked for the local bank, providing the family with more of a financially stable lifestyle. She went to the community college after high school and used what she learned to her advantage. Eventually, she became skilled in accounting and got the job at the bank, eventually being promoted to bank manager. And of course, there is his 17-year-old daughter, Rebecca. As a child, she was his world, and he was hers. But as she got older, that all changed, and it just bothered and hurt him on how much it did, and that he just couldn't understand why. He loves his family and would move oceans and mountain for them. But lately, he's noticed that his daughter has been rude to him. In fact, now that he thinks about it, she has been that way since she turned 12. At first, he thought it was just teens rebelling against their parent. But for her, not really. There was one time when she was 12, he asked her to go upstairs to bed, and she responded with, "Why should I?" He was taken aback. He gave her a stern warning and she went up, but that was strange. Another time when she was 14, they were having a block party with neighbors. He told her to put on a different outfit because it was revealing. She screamed loud for people to hear. The only embarrassing thing is being around you. That one hurt Harold as he recalled the memory. Then there was her sweet 16-year birthday. Harold remembered that well. He worked triple-hour shift when they were available and worked 17-day stretches back-to-back to save up for his daughter's present. A down payment for a 2014 dark blue Chevy Impala that had less than 10,000 miles on it. With the money he made and saved that first half of the year, he was able to buy a used one for $9,000. He practically had the car completely paid off by the time her birthday came around. All her friends were there and brought her top-of-the-line clothes and attire. But when he showed her the car, she looked at it as if it were garbage. "Gee, thanks I guess, Dad." He remembered he lost it and screamed at her for all he had to do and sacrifice to get her that car, and how her responses were beyond disrespectful. She rolled her eyes at him, and he was about to strike her, but claimed himself before he did. She still drove the car, of course, but only to have it in a car wreck later. One of her boyfriends wanted to impress her with his skill behind the wheel. Of course, she allowed him to drive the car she claimed to hate that her father worked hard and paid for to her to have. All just for the boyfriend to try and show off, just to crash into an embankment. The car was eventually totaled. A tear of frustration came down his cheek when he saw the car towed away. He was thankful his daughter was alive and well, but it broke his heart to see all his hard work go towards nothing. And every time he displayed his daughter, his wife would never support him. In fact, the only time she would involve herself was to excuse Rebecca's actions while trying to bash Harold. And now, after a long day of talking to clients and doing interview, Harold was on his way home. He had to admit there was a bright side to this. For months he was saving money to take his wife to Jamaica for their anniversary. They were supposed to go years ago, but their schedules always were out of alignment with each other. So they settled for a nice dinner in the city with an eloquent hotel. Harold loved his wife and took every moment to show her. He smiled as he gazed at the glove compartment that held the tickets. Sandra is going to be exhausted, most likely had a long, stressful day. She is going to be surprised. Harold continued his drive home in his 2024 Chevrolet Camaro. He laughs to himself about how he and his friend would argue on whether Ford of Dodge was the better brand. Sometimes Sandra would get into the fray for fun and join them. How he loved his wife and daughter. For better or worse, they were his family. As he saw his house in the distance, a sense of reflection came to mind. Despite all the heartache he went through, he still had his family. As he opened the door, he saw his daughter coming down the stairs. But when he saw what she was wearing, where exactly do you think you're going with that on? Rebecca rolled her eyes at the announcement. I'm going to the movies with the girls and then the house party in Lafayette. I told you, remember? Harold ignored the attitude behind her words and responded. 1. You never told me about a house party, just the movie. Because if you did tell me about a house party that is filled with people I never met and chances are don't ever want to nor would want you to meet them, you and I both know I would say no. 2. There is no way in hell I'm letting my 17-year-old daughter walk out in a short skirt that barely covers your body. Your mother and I raised you better than that. Now the only place you are going is back to your room, to take that off and stay because you're grounded. Rebecca looked in horror. Grounded? For what? For clothes you don't like? No, Rebecca, not for clothes I don't like. I don't want the wrong guy to think he can sleep with you because he thinks you're easy. In fact, that devalues you as a young woman because all you show the world is that you don't respect yourself based on your appearance. But no, that's not why, surprisingly. It's because you have our failing math, when I specifically told you to work on that. And the fact that the principal called and told me you were skipping school to hang with friends while you were supposed to be in school. That's why you're grounded. Rebecca glared at her father, not saying a word as her nostrils flared. You stupid, pathetic excuse of a man. Me and Mom should have left you years ago, you sorry loser. Without warning, Harold slapped his daughter hard backhanded. So hard that she fell onto the couch behind her. The shock of what happened hit her almost as hard as the slap itself. When she looked at her father, she was terrified for the first time in what seemed like ages. The look in his eyes was hard and fierce. He then spoke in a calm yet cold tone. Rebecca H. Jacobs, if you live under this roof, you will abide by my rules. If I pay for the little things you take for granted, such as food, clothes, and shelter, and the love and discipline of a father, you will never speak to me like that. I don't know who you think you are talking to, or what crazy friend you hang out with that gave you the idiotic impression that it was okay to talk to me like that, but let me tell you now, I will slap you back to never mind your childhood if you ever in your life talk to me like that again. Do we understand each other? Rebecca was shaking and could not answer at first. Harold leaned in closer to her and spoke. I asked you a question. Rebecca's then barely nodded and answered, yes, sir, I understand. Good, now go upstairs. You're grounded for 3 weeks. With that, Rebecca made her way upstairs, while Harold made his way to the fridge to have a beer and prepare for the onslaught that is his wife when she comes home. After 15 minutes, he had finished his drink and needed a smoke outside to calm down. He decided to go to his daughter's room. Lightly knocking on the door, he asked for her. Rebecca? It's open. Her small voice was heard as he opened the door. He saw that she had been crying from what happened. She may have been disrespectful or even cruel, but she was still his daughter whom he loved. Honey, I'm sorry that it came to me slapping you. It should not have come to that point. It just seems that lately you have been colder or disrespectful to me, and I don't understand why. And when you called me a loser to my face, something in me just snapped. But as much as it hurt me to slap you, and I love you with all my heart, I will not be disrespectful in my own house. If there is something that is bothering you or something that you feel I did was wrong, I need you to tell me so that we can fix this. No matter what, I will always love you, as father should love his daughter. Harold paused and waited for a response. Rebecca just lifted her head, a look of disdain in her face, but she knew better than to say anything to him. At that point, Harold kissed her forehead and left her room. An hour later, Sandra's car sped in the driveway like a person possessed. As soon as the door opened, Harold knew he was going to need another smoke. Who the hell do you think you are slapping our baby like that, Harold? Harold was calm yet firm. Good evening, honey. Welcome home. How was your work today? I figured I asked that since you clearly left that out of greeting your husband. Not that you ever did lately, but that's another topic. And to answer your question, her father last I checked. And as much as I love our baby, I will not tolerate her being so disrespectful to me under the same roof in which I bought and supported our family with. Sandra's eyes narrowed to a slit and her breath steady. My daughter, Our honey, our daughter. Sandra was irritated. She hated when Harold was like this, able to say no and not be her doormat. It reminded her that she was not as in charge of the relationship as she thought. She then took a breath. Sandra called me at work and told me you slapped her. Is that true? Harold read her face before she answered. Not only is it true, but slapped her hard enough that I honestly think I slapped memories of her childhood back into her forefront for a bit when she landed on the couch. Sandra was taken aback and placed her hands on her mouth as if something was going to fall out of it. Then she looked at Harold as the anger in her grew from within. So, is that it's Harold? Are you going to just slap my daughter around when she says something to you? Harold's calm demeanor now faded, his anger growing more than Sandra's, yet his voice was calm. No, but I'm going to discipline our daughter whenever she disrespects her parents, particularly when it's under the same roof that she resides in due to the sacrifice we make particularly for her. Tell me, my loving wife, did she tell you why I slapped her? Or did you just go on that? Sandra couldn't say anything. She slowly put her head down and rubbed her hands. I thought so, but I'll enlighten you. After stopping our daughter from going to a party she didn't tell me about, while wearing something that looks like she charges by the hour, I informed her she was grounded for skipping school for the past week. Were you aware of that? And before you asked, the principal just called me today. And those missed called and text that you clearly didn't bother to check confirm that. So again, did you know? Sandra put her head down again. No, I did not. I'll give you credit for admitting that at least before you want to take my head off. But even that is not why I slapped her. I slapped her because of what she said to my face, under this roof. I slapped her because she said, and I quote, "You stupid, pathetic excuse of a man. Me and mom should have left you years ago, you sorry loser." Sandra was taken aback by that. Our daughter told me that Sandra, our little girl, told her father that despicable statement to my face. And it's not just this. This has been going on for years. Every little jab here, and every blatant disregard to whatever I say there. And you? Mommy the superhero is there all the time to save the day from her facing consequences from talking to her father like shit. Now, I'm not perfect by any means. I'll be the first to tell you I'm a loser. But I bust my butt for my family. I wake up at 4:00 am, 60 plus hours a week, on call 365 days out of the year, and deal with God knows how many complaints, detains, contracts, insufferable clients, court testimonies, injuries, and corporate scumsuckers on a regular basis. But after all that, I will make every school function, every basketball game our daughter plays, including away games, help her with her homework that she at least tells me about, paid for her training and everything she has. But when I have the audacity to discipline my daughter for saying something so cruel, I'm the bad guy. Seriously? Sandra was speechless as she heard her husband's words, and sees the tears in his eyes as his voice grew louder as he spoke. He sees his shoulders move up and down as he tries to catch his breath. Look, Harold, maybe if you just call me beforehand before you. Harold took a breath and left the living room. I'm going for a drive. I need to clear my head. With that, he left a stunned wife in the middle of the living room. Harla didn't go anywhere in particular, just drove to get away from that house. Everything he has done for his family, just to be seen as its ATM or doormat when it suited them. How did this happen? He said out loud. Suddenly he saw that his phone had rung. At first, he thought it may have been his wife or daughter, but it was only his mother. As soon as he answered he was met by his mother's raging voice. What in the hell is wrong with you? Hi, Mom. Don't hi, Mom me. Sandra and Rebecca just got off the phone with me. Harold pinched his nose in annoyance. Of course they did. They said you struck Rebecca, and then cursed out Sandra. Have you lost your mind? No, Mom, just my patience. With that, Harold hung up the phone. Harold loved his mother, to a point at least. She was there for him when it was necessary. His mother, Brenda Logan, never really showed Harold love of compassion. He never got the loving, nurturing mother as most kids did. When he was born, Harold's father, whom he never meets, left them for another woman, abandoning his family. At least that was the story that was told. She would always be cold to him. She never bothered to bond with him. There was no loving relationship between mother and son, and she let it be known, telling him he was no good just like his father, whenever he done wrong. His family, but the loving and compassion was never for him. It wasn't until Harold was one when his mother met his stepfather, Trevor Jacobs. Trevor was like the light for Harold and his mother. For Brenda, he was the man of her dreams with the heart to match, and loved her with all his heart. But for Harold, it was the first time Harold knew what having a loving parent was like. Trevor raised and loved Trevor like his own, taught him everything he needed to know about being a man. even though his bio dad ran out before he could, and at times would even stand up for Harold when Brenda gone too far on him. Although Brenda never showed Harold love, the abuse did stop. In time, they merely tolerated each other. Trevor loved him so much that he took his father's name. Eventually, Brenda and Trevor got married and had their son Adam Jacobs a year later. Brenda showered Adam with all her love and Trevor, but it seemed Harold never got this, except from Trevor. Adam was the golden child of the family. In his mother's eye, he could do no wrong. However, in Trevor's, he loved and disciplined his boys the same. Adam would always find a way to use his big brother to get him out of trouble or to shift blame. Adam would take everything that was Harold, friends, allowance, his parents' love and affection. In time, he didn't want to talk to anyone but Trevor. When Rebecca was born, his family was very supportive of Sandra, but it was only his father that was supportive of both him and Sandra. Adam would even try to talk to Sandra when Harold wasn't around, but Trevor would put a stop to that. Up until his death a few years later. It was because of Trevor that Harold knew what to do to take care of his young family. When Trevor made a will, most thought that everything would be given to Adam, including Harold, but the trust was to be given equally to both children when each turned 24, $250,000 each. Ever since then, Adam has shown his hatred to his brother because he felt he was entitled to the whole fortune due to the fact he was the biological son. Harold used the trust to buy his family a house when he was done with military life. Back in the present, Harold knew he would have to come back home, so after watching the sun set at an old drive-in, he made his way home. When he arrived, he saw his wife waiting for him. "Harold, I'm sorry for how I behaved, and I'm sorry for not considering how you feel about Rebecca. You are right. I do take her side all the time and make you look like the bad guy when you are her father. And as your wife, I need to respect that." Harold smiled at that. "That's all I ask, honey. I love you and Rebecca so much. You are my world. Just have my back, baby, and give me that love and respect that I give you. That is all I ask. I love you so much, Sandra. I love you too, Harold." Harold then kissed his wife, and she kissed him. Harold then reached into his pocket. "You know, I was going to tell you before that little blowout, but I guess now is as good a time as any." Harold placed the 2 first-class plane tickets to Jamaica and watched as his wife swooned into his arms. "Harold, does this mean that I finally got my paid time off to align with my beautiful wife, so we can finally get to go on a real vacation for our anniversary?" "Yes, that's exactly what it means." Sandra jumped into his arms, kissing him non-stop. "I love you so much. I love you too. Now allow me to demonstrate how much my beautiful wife." Their hands exploring each other as they slowly remove the other's clothing. "Hey," kissed as they made their way upstairs to their room and made love with renewed passion. As the days pass, things improve in the Jacobs household. Sandra no longer undermined Harold and respected his role as head of the household. Although Rebecca still didn't speak to Harold, she no longer gave him an insufferable attitude and no longer skipped school. Her grades even began to improve when she made up lost assignments. Even his mother, eased back on the nagging calls of how his family was upset with him, began to decrease. Although he found it strange that his brother would visit, and that his daughter seemed to be in better spirits when he was around. But other than that, things seemed well in what looked like ages. One day, both Harold and Sandra were off and decided to do some cleaning in the house. They wanted to come back home to a clean house after a beautiful getaway. When Rebecca was told of their trip without her, she was angry, but she did not dare show or share that anger, particularly after what happened the other night. So, she kept it to herself. Harold saw what he believed was distress in her eyes and informed her that the punishment was over, on the condition that she actually do good at school, and that her grandmother and uncle will take turns keeping watch over her. Sandra was working in the garage, while Harold worked in the attic. It was strange working there, seeing things that have not been seen in what seems like forever. He sees a box full of old photo albums as he is cleaning, his nostalgia tempting him. He looks at childhood photos, smiles at the ones with Trevor. He then sees photos of him and his wife when they started dating. He laughs to himself, "Can't believe I used to think wearing that was actually cool." He sees photos of their wedding, Rebecca's birth, and her years growing up. He then shed a few tears. It seemed so simple then. He then began to put the photos back, when he notices a plastic bag. In it are a bundle of envelopes and a brown large envelope. Once he opens the content and begins to read it, his heart shatters, as his world is destroyed. "My dearest love, Adam, what happened last night was magical. I have never felt anything like that. How I long for your touch again. Your touch to my body is like an artist making his masterpiece. How you please me is nothing compared to what Harold does. I just want you in my arms. Yours always, Sandra. His heart is ripped from his chest as his soul is crushed. She loves Adam? He barely gets the words out as he feels the pain envelop him. I have been married to her for over 20 years. I loved her with all my heart, and she does this to me? He soon finds more letters, including ones from his brother. My dearest Sandra, I never thought it would come to this. I remember the first time I saw you. I knew I loved you right there and then. How I love every moment making love to you. From the taste of your lips, the touch of your skin, and the pleasure of pleasing your body. I love you, my beautiful woman, with all my heart. Love, Adam. P.S. Rebecca has the eyes of her mother. I love you both so much. Harold drops the box in shock. No, this is not real. This is not happening. He then sees an envelope. In it is a DNA sheet showing him he is not the biological father. His heart sinks as he reads it again and again, but the results are the same. Something tells him to keep reading no matter what. And so, he does. He uncovers pictures romantic and explicit. Even a video of them on a date, Sandra using the new phone he had bought her for her birthday. When he was done, he could no longer be her husband. He just sat there letting his tears fall. 20 years, he says to himself, for what? To be made a cuck by my own brother? Then something occurs to him. He looks at the date of the letters. He sees that they all have the date around the time that Rebecca was conceived. His blood turned cold at that thought that his daughter is not his own after all this time. He thinks all the time that he was underappreciated and disrespected by his family. Did they know? His mother hates him because of what his bio dad did. His brother for hating him for simply existing. His wife and daughter for not doing everything they say to bend him to their will like some joke. He had to leave. He had to get out of here, and he had to plan. The first thing he needed was proof. So, he got out of the attic with the letters and DNA sheet and went to his daughter's bathroom. Without thinking, he took her hair particle from her comb and put it in a plastic bag. Once finished, he gathers himself as much as possible. He did not want to give way to the fact that something was wrong. He takes it all in as if he is working for a Clint, listing all things he needs done, and the execution of getting them done in his head. After a few minutes, and takes a deep breath and begins his plans. Harold left the room and went downstairs, bumping into his wife. Harold, where are you going? We were supposed to clean the house top to bottom today. It took Harold every fiber of his being to not want to strangle her, scream at her for making him a cuck to his brother, who hates him of all people. But he calmed himself and did not show his anger. I just realized I need to get some supplies for the attic. There are some things I would like to add and get to help organize what we have in boxes. Some large container would properly protect the things anyway. Sandra nodded her head. That does make sense. Never considered that. Thank you, honey. Could you pick up something for dinner on your way back? I'm going to be too exhausted to cook. Of course, dear. I love you. Harold is surprised he didn't throw up after saying the words and then kissed her. I love you too, honey. See you soon. Harold called his best PI of his company as soon as he is around the block, heading to his office. Marcus, I need to see you. It's urgent. I'll explain on the way. Marcus Dwight was one of the best police officers in the city for over 25 years, but an ambush nearly cost him his life. His wife Linda begged him to retire, and for his unborn child and her he did. After everything passed, he still had the rush, but didn't want the danger. So he had been working for Harold's security company for years now. Not only do they supply security offers, but also private investigations. With his skills, experience, and connections in law enforcement, he has proven himself invaluable to Harold and his company. When Harold arrived at the office, Marcus could tell something was bothering him. Harold? What's wrong? You look like hell. At that moment, Harold breaks down, telling Marcus everything. Marcus and Harold were not exactly friends, but they respected each other. But this was different. By the time Harold had finished, Marcus was fuming. He had a friend in the force that got himself killed dealing with something similar. The friend found out his daughter was not his, and the father chose not to be present. So, despite divorcing the wife, he was forced to pay child support and alimony. The husband went nuts in the courtroom, got a hold of the bailiff's gun somehow, shot the wife, the biological father, even the judge, before the other bailiffs got in the courtroom and shot him dead. That friend was like a brother to him, and even saved both him and his wife from an outfit's attempt to kill them both, and would have succeeded if not for him. Marcus and his wife Donna adopted his youngest daughter of his friend who was his. The oldest lived with the wife bio parents. Seeing Harold like this reminded him of when his friend found out his daughter wasn't his. And Marcus took it personal. What do you want to do? Harold stood up, wiping the tears from his face. First, I want to take care of this. He pulls out the bag of his daughter's hair. I want to make sure my daughter is mine or not. We will proceed based on the results. Second, I want to destroy them. Not illegally. I want them to feel what I do. And they can't do that dead. Everyone who was a part of it or knew about it yet did nothing will feel every amount of pain, suffering, and humiliation as possible. And maybe somewhere along the line, I'll have some sense of sanity back. Marcus smiled and said, then let's get to work. Marcus then brought him into a second room. Inside was a reassured trove of spy equipment. From miniature cameras the size of a marble, to recording devices that could be used to tap phone conversations without the person knowing, even hacking equipment that can go into someone's storage cloud filled with deleted information. Look, Harold, in the end this is all legal if the stuff that's being monitored is in your name. Your house, car, phone, anything that's in your name is all legal. I will just need your permission to install everything that's needed. Harold nodded. Good, sign this paperwork, and I will officially be able to work for you. This is usually expensive, but given the situation, I'll take an 80% cut for the rate. The hacking devices are a little tough for me to get to, but they are easy to install. I'll give you the instructions to look over. As far as the cameras in the house, I'll take care of it. Just have me come in a day when it's just you or nobody home. I don't want to tell you where they are in case you give the locations away by accident. Trust me, they will pick up any angle and audio in the area. We don't talk much, Harold, but I respect what you do for the people of this company, and I know all too well what you are going through. Harold finally felt like he had someone's support in what seems like ages. Also, this is an address for DNA testing. Usually, you must mail it. However, since we live near the place, you can just show up. I'll make a call to a friend of mine. You should be able to drop it off today. Harold gave a look of determination. Okay, let's get this ball rolling. When Harold was finished at Marcus's office, he called his lawyer and best friend, Charles Darwin. Charles, I need your help. Can we meet? Something has happened. Harold, what happened? I swear I'll tell you, but it must be in person and now. Yes, of course. Meet me in the office in an hour. When Harold arrived, Charles took note of the broken, dishevelled look of his friend. Holy hell, Harold, what happened to you? Is Sandra and Rebecca all right? Harold couldn't help it, but he cried again, the day's discovery taking its toll. He then told Charles everything that happened. When it was over, Charles was saddened but angry for his friend. Harold, I promise you they are not going to get away with this. Especially that little entitled shit Adam. First, your friend Marcus is right. Your property gives you the right to monitor whatever you want in it. The house is in your name, as well as phones since they and their plan are also in your name. Sandra may think she can just delete what she may find incriminating, but if you can get a hold of it, we just need your permission to access its deleted files that are in the cloud. Not to mention the letters and videos you already downloaded. And from what you tell me, Marcus has miniature equipment that can hack into her phone. Also, this state has recently become at fault, meaning that if you can prove infidelity, that will now be considered greatly in how assets are divided between parties. To put it bluntly, whoever did the cheating is screwed, and the assets of the cheated are protected. Charles saw the blank look on his friend. I know this is hard for you, man. No, I don't know and I'm sorry. I can only imagine what you are going through right now. But Harold, you must protect yourself now and do what's best for you. Harold spoke. I loved her, Charles, with every fiber in my being. We've been together for over 17 years. 17 years that meant nothing to her. And to top it off, there is the possibility that my own daughter, who hates me, but I loved, protected, and cared for, may not even mind. And to top it off, the a-hole my wife cheated and may still be cheating on me with is my own brother, who at this point hates me for just exiting at this point. His defeated face broke his friend's heart. We'll set things right, man, I promise. You helped me fight off those bullies who were harassing my then girlfriend, now wife, back at that bar years ago. Linda, and I never forgot that. If there is anything else we can do for you, we will be there, you have my word. The two friends embraced in a hug. Harold made his way home, with the supplies he said he would buy. On his way, he thought about today's event, the secrets he discovered, and the humiliation he endured. He was enraged, heartbroken, but he knew he could not let it show. He would show no indication that he knew about the affair. He thought about the DNA results he dropped off. He was thankful that Marcus still had connections. What would normally take 3 weeks would take less than 1 from what he shared. Still, he pained at the thought of Rebecca not being his. But the more he thought about it, the more he thought about her attitude and apparent disdain towards him. The possibility seemed more likely by the second, and it broke his heart. When he arrived home, all seemed normal. His wife leaned for a kiss. Despite his contempt for her, he kisses her back to avoid suspension. They finish cleaning the house and have dinner in the evening. Harold looks at his family and it feels different. It is as if he is in a TV sitcom. and the people in front of him are actors that are not real. Later that night, when everyone is asleep, Harold gets the hacking equipment that Marcus gave him. He follows the instructions and attaches them to both Sandra's and Rebecca's phone. When it's over, he sends Marcus the text to let him know it done. 3 minutes later, Marcus responds, "Understood," signaling the hacking has begun. By the end of the week, Harold will have all the information he needed, whether he liked it or not. The following days were mundane. Rebecca went to school and Sandra to work. Harold decided that despite what was happening, he wanted to make a change. He could not just sit and be sad and broken. He was acting with his friend's help, but he had to do something for himself. He already worked out and looked good. So, he decided he needed another outlet. He loved comic books as a kid, so he decided to look for a comic book shop in town. He searched the net for one, and found one called the Mischievous Pin. When he went inside, thoughts of his childhood came into view. He remembered how he and his friend would look at comic books all day and compare heroes and villains, talk about the latest stories and series would come out, and watch anime all day. How they felt that it was an escape from the crap of everyday life. He had not thought of that person in a long time. And then he became sad again, for that friend was lost to him for years now. When he took his comics to the cashier, he saw a woman he thought had never see again. Rose, the woman, looked at him, and her eyes went wide, and her smile soon followed. "Harold. Oh my God, it's been ages." She went from around the register to greet her old friend, hugging him as tight as she could. "Long time no sees." "Yes, it has. How are you, Rose?" I was the first time Harold smiled with sincerity since this whole ordeal started. Rose came into Harold's life when he was a child. He was crying because the other kids had their parents there for Parents' Day. The kids would bring their parents in for the day and tell the other kids what they did. Harold wanted his parent to come, but Trevor could not come because he was a trucker and was already across the country. When he asked his mother a week before the function, she chastised him. "I work for this family and put clothes on you back and feed you. And you want me to stop that for some stupid day? What is wrong with you? Are you retarded or something? Don't be stupid now, leave me alone." She told him that, only to see that she was with his little brother Adam. When he tried to join him, she slapped him. "This is your brother's day. You are a big boy now. Don't be selfish." Harold then ran under a tree and began to cry. When someone approached him, she was a girl he never saw before. Her red hair too went to her shoulders and blue eyes caught his attention as he looked up, wiping away his tear. The girl spoke. "Hello, I saw Run here. Why are you sad?" Harold looked up. "My mom. She doesn't want to be around me." The little girl sat next to Harold. "I'm sorry. Do you want to come meet my parents? We are having a picnic downhill." Little Harold was dumbstruck, but through the tears a smile formed as he nodded. And the girl smiled back. "Cool. My name is Rose. Rose McAllister, what's your name?" "Harold Jacobs." Rose smiled. "Well, it's nice to meet you, Harold. Race you down. Hey, wait up." And thus began a beautiful friendship. They would be friends and with each other all the way to high school. Eventually, their friendship grew into something more, and by their sophomore year they fell in love and began to date. Adam saw Rose and wanted her. He had taken things from Harold before and thought this shouldn't be any different. One day when she was waiting for Harold to answer the door, Adam came out first. He asked her out on a date, trying to convince Rose to just leave Harold and go with him instead. She bluntly refused, saying she was with Harold and Harold alone. When Adam grabbed her arm when she was leaving, she turned around, elbowing him in the face, breaking his nose, then kicking him in the nuts. Adam was left on the floor in a fetal position. However, Adam told his mother, who had influence and connection with the school board and city council, what happened, and the hellstorm began. When it was over, Rose and her family had to move to avoid legal issues. Rose and Harold were heartbroken but understood they had no choice. "Harold, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he would make this as big as he did." Harold wiped her tears and embraced her as he shed his own. "What do you have to be sorry about?" Not showing having a video of the whole thing. Both laughed. "You didn't do a thing wrong. If anything, this is my fault. I wish I got to the door first, then none of this." She placed a finger on his lips. "Don't you do that, Harold Jacobs. Don't fall a grenade when you don't have to." Both just held each other in the park they first meet so long ago. "This isn't fair. I love you, Harold. I know people think I'm young and stupid, but I do." "No, you're not stupid, because I love you too." Both wanted to wait for their first time to be when they were 18 at prom, to make it feel right. But their love and friendship always grew over the years. When the day of the move arrived, they felt like someone had died. Harold was driven to Rose's house by Trevor. Trevor had always approved of Rose as Rose's parent approved of Harold. Both parties sympathies with the two teens, but had no choice in the situation. Harold gave Rose one last hug before seeing her driven away. He stood there in the middle of the street looking at her as she looked back to him, both knowing they would never see each other again. As the years passed, he would meet Sandra soon after and eventually marry her and have his family. But now, after all these years, these friends and loves that were thought gone forever are now in each other's arms again. Harold, I can't believe it. It's been so long. Harold could see the tear fall from her eyes. Even though it has been years since they last saw each other, Rose had truly grew into a beautiful woman. Standing 5 feet 5 inches with a lean body and being 33 and not looking a day over 21. She was as beautiful as an enchanted fair maiden from tales of old. Her natural but short-cut red hair and blue eyes made her enchanting. She was also a geek who loved all things fiction. She also had a tattoo of a Warhammer 40k Sisters of Battle completely covering her right shoulder. She also had a detailed battle gauntlet that wrapped around her right forearm with an image of a compass on her right hand. On her left hand, she had the image of an eagle holding an olive branch of peace in one talon and a baseball bat in the other, a shout out to her favorite punk band. Her red hair was cut short past her ears, and she now wore glasses. However, the glasses had smiley faces on the black-coated handles. Holy hell, Rose, you look amazing. Rose blushed before she responded. Speak for yourself, handsome. You trying out for the next Conan, or what? Both friends laughed. Hey, I'm going on break in a few. You want to catch up? Harold did not hesitate. I'd love to. So much has happened. The two made their way to the back to a break room, which looked surpassingly furnished and comfortable. Rose, this place is amazing. It has all the books we saw as kids and then some. How long have you been working here? Rose took a sip from her soda. About as long as I opened this place up a few months ago. You mean you own this place? How? Well, you have this thing called money, which can buy you a deed. Harold threw an empty chip bag at her. Okay, I guess what I should have asked is how did this become possible? Rose had a slight change of tone on her face. Mom and Dad died last year in a car accident. Oh God, Rose, I'm so sorry. Martin and Sherry were good people. Thank you, Harold. They had a life insurance policy that had $500,000 on me in case something happened. But I didn't know until a little after the funeral that my grandparent on both sides had a trust for me as well. They died soon after. With the money totaled up, I had a good $2 million when it was all said and done. I already went to business schools, and you and I both know I love comics and fiction. So, I decided to come back into town and see some properties. Saw this place. I used to be an old middle school. 3 stories high and half the size of a football field. I got the land and building for a sweet deal. The plumbing and rebuilding were a nightmare, but the result paid off in the end. This place is beautiful now. No to mention the perk of literally living on the top floor like a superhero. So not only is it my place of business, but it's where I come home. Harold was stunned and happy for his friend. I'm proud of you, Rose. You deserve your success. I bet your guy must be the luckiest in the world. Rose paused a moment. He's no longer in the picture. He decided to end things by bringing his skank in our bed. I came home early to surprise him. When I confronted him, he had the nerve to be upset with me for interrupting him. His witch just looked at me smug and told me they'd been at it for years. I tried to get to her, but he held me, told me we were done, with no shame at all. Thank God I didn't have kids with the scumsucker. We parted ways after that. He took my money in the process. Of course, when he found out about the payday, he did the begging and pleading, but nah. Harold looked at her. Rose, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I just had something similar happen to me as well. Rose inquired, and Harold told her everything that happened this past week. When he was finished, Rose hugged her friend. Whatever happens, I'm here for you always. Harold blushed in her hug. It felt like coming into a warm place from being in the cold so long. When the friend parted, she walked him out the store. Harold, I'm not going to impose on you, but if you want to come by sometime again, you are more than welcomed. Harold spoke. I would like that. They waved each other as Harold drove off. Harold was on his way home when he got a text from Marcus. Met me at Charles. Harold knew what this meant, and as much as he wanted this, he dreaded what was to come at the same time. When he arrived there, Linda, Charles's secretary and wife, greeted him. Harold, Charles told me what happened. I'm so sorry. Just remember, we are here for you whatever happens. Harold hugged her back and thanked her before heading into the office. He was greeted by Marcus and Charles, both with grim expressions. Marcus spoke first. Harold, I'm sorry, it's bad. We found even more text and videos from them both. From the looks of it, It's been an on and off affair since Rebecca was born. But that's not all. Marcus paused before he continued. The test came in, and it turns out you are not the father. Every emotion Harold held back until this point was released full steam. All the pain, the hurt, the humiliation of bringing an unknown cuck to raise another man's baby hit him like a freight train and left him in a heap. Marcus gave him a sip from his flask to claim his nerves. Then he continued. There is more, from what we found out. Your mother and daughter are fully aware of the affair. They both found out when Rebecca was 12, around the time you felt that everything was changing. Harold looked at the documents, and it broke his heart. Chats of how Rebecca hates Harold and calls him a loser and glad he isn't her dad, all while living off him. How Mom and she would go on family trips with Adam to the water park or restaurant without telling Harold, even joined by his own mother at times. They would even talk about eventually divorcing Harold when Rebecca's graduated from school and use alimony to get Harold to pay for any school she wanted to go to, while having Adam move into the house that Harold bought with months that he felt should have been there. Even conversations on how his mother wished he had died instead of Trevor, and how she always hated him since he was born. How he was a reminder of her struggles and what she lost. Harold was in shock at this point to cry anymore. How could my own family hate me so much? Charles and Linda put their hand on his shoulder. Then Linda spoke. Harold, family is not defined by blood, but by actions. The day you saved me and Charles from that attack so long ago is the day you became my family. If not for you, Charles would have been dead from a metal pipe to the head, and I would have been those scumsuckers' toy. I can hold and love my husband and kids because of you. We love you, Harold, and we will do our best to remind you of that as long as we can. Harold smiled at that as they hugged him. When they parted, he then spoke to Charles. We go scorched earth. Charles nodded and understood. All paperwork is ready. How do you want it sent? I will take it to Sandra. She's expecting a surprise. I'll have one waiting for her when she and Rebecca come home. Harold once loved his daughter with all his heart, but with everything revealed, he can't even stand her saying her name. Charles nodded. Okay, what about Adam? Adam works at a local business firm. I think it may be a shame if he received some rather distressful news while on the clock. An understanding nod came from Charles. Also, I want something special for my mother. Charles nodded and understood. The papers will be sent to Adam by the end of the day. Your divorce papers will be ready within the hour. Harold took a moment and said, No, have them ready, but I'll give them to him myself. Rebecca's party will be coming up, and of our family and her friends will be there. I want everyone to know that he is not the golden child he was thought to have been. My mother will not be able to cover for him. Charles was taken aback, but then smiled at the idea. I could get behind that. Consider it done. Harold kept his resolve. I must keep up appearances. My wife and my anniversary are coming up. I'm going to confront her then. After that, I'll decide what to do. Everyone nodded in agreement. Linda then spoke. Just remember we love you and are here for you. With that, he hugged everyone and went his way. The day arrived when Harold and Sandra left for vacation. Sandra was unusually in the mood prior to the day, so Harold had sex with her the night before. There was no love, only aggression. He was wild with her, uncaring for her own needs. He did it with her as if she were a cheap 304. When he was finished, however, Sandra was both satisfied and shocked. My God, Harold, what has gotten into you? That was amazing. Harold just responded. Just something I wanted to get out of my system. As the luggages was being loaded, Adam and Harold's mother, Janet, arrived. Harold saw the smirk his brother gave him as he walked towards him. He fought the urge of punching that smile off his arrogant face. Hey bro, hear you going off to the islands of Jamaica? Adam said in an exaggerated Jamaican accent. Yeah, it's an anniversary gift. Just look over Rebecca, okay? Adam responded. Oh, you know I love her like she's my own. You two just have fun on your trip, okay? Before he could say anything, Harold watched as he made his way towards Sandra. Harold felt anger build in him, not just from Adam's statement about Rebecca, but how he hugged his wife and saw his hand lower to her butt. The urge to take his hand and throw him to the ground, just to bash his face against it, was high, but Harold stayed firm. He could not avoid losing the element of surprise. He avoided his mother, not that she cared. In fact, if he did so much as say hi to her, I would be suspicious, as was their relationship with each other. After the Camaro was loaded, they made their way to the airport. As Harold looked outside, seeing the island below, hearing the captain's announcement saying they were about to land, he thought about how this was going to play out, how he was going to confront her, and how he was going to tell her what was going to happen. He was also going to give her the benefit of the doubt that there was a piece of her in there that was going to be honest, and would tell him everything. He at least deserved that. Until then, he would keep up the illusion of the loving husband. When they arrived, it was beautiful. The suite had its own catches and balcony that overlooked the clear oceans and beach that was in walking distance below. The shower had 5 shower heads that came from different angles, and the nightlife was perfect for couples. The resort they stayed in was called the Hidden Treasure, due to it being unable to have sky photos since its altitude and clouds prevent it, but its beauty with sights was undeniable. The trip would only be for 4 days, so Harold felt that this was goodbye to his marriage, so he made do. He and Sandra enjoyed themselves, going on trials and hikes with tour guides and learn about the culture. Spent time on the beach and nightclubs. On the second night, Sandra was radiant. She was enjoying herself in what seemed like forever. As they walked on the beach in the late evening, she wanted him. Harold couldn't deny that she was in rare form, but he did not love her. He decided that this will be the last time he touches her again. He would not tell her, of course, but he knew. She made love to him, but there was no love towards her. He merely used her for his own pleasure as before, nothing more. He would never give that or any side to her again, and as her sated body laid next to him, he would make sure she knew tomorrow. The following morning, Harold woke up. He saw his wife asleep on the beach next to him, her dress covering her exposed areas. He lightly nagged her awake. "Hey honey, get up. Let's get you cleaned up and get some breakfast." As they both cleaned in their room, they made their way to a restaurant. As they made their order, Sandra spoke first. "Harold, this trip has been amazing. I want you to know that I love you and thank the world of you, and that when we come home things are going to change and will never be the same." Harold finished his fruit beverage and set it on the table before responding. "Sandra, on that we agree." Suddenly Harold pulled out a package of what looked like something bundled in a Ziploc bag. When Harold removed the contents and placed them on the table, Sandra's face went white. They were the love letters she had written to Adam long ago. Where did? "I found them in the attic when we were cleaning. You know, the day after you told me you loved me." Sandra was straining to speak, tear running down her face as she realizes her marriage of almost 20 years is crashing down. I can explain. It was a mistake." Harold laughed with no humor in it at all. "A mistake? That's the best you can do? Forgetting an ingredient for a recipe is a mistake. Forgetting your house keys at home is a mistake. No, Sandra, having sex with someone and then having your husband raise their child is quite a bit more than a mistake. It's a choice. So have some dignity and respect to at least acknowledge that fact." Sandra continued crying. "When did it start, Sandra?" Sandra took a breath. "A year after we started dating. You and I had an argument, and I was upset. Adam came to my house and took me for a walk. He told me how beautiful I was and how you were a fool to make me cry like this. We ended up on a hill overlooking the area. We started making out and we had sex. It was supposed to be that one time, but we ended up meeting every time we could. We would stop it when you came back from duty, or when things seemed too close for comfort when you almost discovered us. It was on again, off again for years. Sometime once a year. Sometime a bunch of times in a 5-year waiting period." Sandra wiped her tears away before she continued. "Harold, you must know, I never meant to hurt you. I love you with all me." "No, don't you finish that statement. You lost the right to use that word for me. You see, love is fleeting, and it has the requirement to have loyalty and respect with it, to have genuine meaning behind it. And your actions show that you lack that. So, I don't want you to tell me something that you clearly lack." Sandra cried at his words, but she knew she deserved them for what she'd done. "I saw the DNA test as well. I know Rebecca is not mine." Sandra gasped. "So not only do you make me a cuck from my own brother, but you make me raise another man's child as well. A child that, despite me loving with every fiber of my being, treated me like crap. Who is he anyway? Who is the man that is that demon spawn's father?" Harold was harsh and cruel, and he already knew the answer. He just wanted to see if Sandra had at least a little dignity in her to be honest with him for once. If she could do that, maybe there was some hope to fix this. Despite everything that happened, he still loved her. But he would not stay in a marriage where his own wife could not be honest with him. "What is his name, Sandra?" Sandra stiffened but final spoke. I can't tell you. I'm sorry." Harold didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a blank expression. Harold placed down the money that paid for their drinks. They lost their appetites and canceled the meal. He then walked away without saying a word. Sandra ran after him, but he wouldn't even look at her. When he reached the hotel, he began to pack. Realizing he was not talking to her, she packed as well, ending the trip. Harold got a flight an hour early without letting Sandra know, so she would be home 2 hours late for him. Plenty of time. When his plane landed, he went home immediately. As soon as he arrived, He opened the door and saw Adam and his arrogant smile. Before Adam could say anything, he went right to his face and said, "I know everything, Adam, about you and Sandra. I'm fighting the urge of smashing your face into my coffee table. So do us both a favor and get out of my house." Adam was speechless, and the look Harold gave him put fear in his heart. He decided not to try his brother and made haste. Harold then began to clean out his room and brought them to the guest room. When Sandra arrived late, she watched as Harold was almost infused moving things from the master bedroom to the basement. When Harold first bought the house, he had the idea of making the basement like an apartment for someone visiting for a bit. This would be his new home as he figured things out. Sandra could only watch as Harold took the last ice of his personal items out of the bedroom to the basement. And as he walked away from the room, she realized too late that her actions may have resulted in Harold walking away from their marriage. The next day, Harold called Marcus, Charles, and Linda and asked if they could meet at the office. He told them how the trip went and what happened, and how he wanted things to move forward. Rebecca is going to have her 18 birthdays at the Grand Lion Hotel. They have a ballroom they're going to be using. I want everything you have gathered and bring it with you. Marcus, you are going to be working there that night as my personal security officer. Hope you enjoy your bonus, because it's happening whether you like it or not. Marcus smiled and nodded. I got some more information on your brother. Turns out he's a bit of a grabber of the ladies when it comes to his job. He has 3 sexual harassment claims on him alone, but they always tend to disappear when they were told that the record of misconduct would follow them to whatever job they went to. Not to mention his company do some rather shady deals, such as tell half-truths to safety inspectors when it involves their clients. Some of his peers are even involved in money laundering and construction rackets with certain criminal groups. For instance, if they have a client whose own potential client doesn't want to do business with them, they put a hold on delivery of product. Let's say you need to build a building. Every building needs cement foundation, wiring, and plumbing. The wiring and plumbing may be a go, but the concrete and foundation will not, and so on and so on. It's the same thing the New York mob did before the feds got them. These guys just tend not to be as greedy as their New York counterparts to avoid attention, but still get a big enough profit that Adam's company gets a big piece of pie. Adam just seems to be a scum sucker, but without the musical of his company backing him, he will feel those lawsuits like anyone else. And before you ask, yes, I have contacted all 3 women, and all 3 are ready to testify against him. Harold was impressed with Marcus's skill as a PI. Marcus, I think when this thing is over, we need to seriously consider you for a promotion. Marcus grinned. Well, yeah, that only makes sense after all. I didn't even have my coffee yet. After the group laughed, Harold took his leave and made his way home. Harold went home with newfound resolve. All the tears he shed were finished. Now there is only purpose. Harold knew of the girl's day out with his mother and Adam, so it made what he was about to do that easier. When he saw the Sandra's car pull up in the driveway, Harold sat in the living room love seat and poured himself a glass of brandy to wait for them to enter. It was Rebecca's birthday as she stepped out the car. Finally, I can leave that loser in this dump. Sandra gave her daughter a stern look. That loser loves you, took care of you, and raised you. The least you can do is show him some respect. Rebecca rolled her eyes at the comment as she opened the door walking inside. Oh, Mom, please. You have been with my real dad since I was born under that loser's nose the whole time. It's a little late to be talking about respect. That loser kept me from Ronnie by keeping me from that party. Now he's with that witch Shelley. I'll never forgive that loser. I hate him. Before Sandra could respond, Harold spoke up in the darkened room. Gee, Rebecca, why don't you tell me how you really feel? The women were terrified when they heard then saw Harold. The look on his face was that of a calm before the storm. Rebecca felt 1,000 times smaller when she realized what she had said, and the fact that Harold was here to hear and witness it. Harold, honey, it's not what you think. She merely misspoke. She said exactly what she wanted to say, and you know what, that's fine. Harold stepped closer to his ex-family. The women huddled closer together as he got closer. I know, Sandra, I know everything, including that this ungrateful, spiteful, entitled creature is not my daughter, but my pieces of crap of a brother Adam. I also know that my monster of a mother knew of the affair since Rebecca was 12, even saw the birthday party when you announced it. You told Rebecca that I was having an affair, and Adam was there to comfort you through the hard time, but used it to mask you shame to the affair you were having with Adam, and she was dumb enough to believe you. He then turned to look at Rebecca. I have no idea what I have done to you to hate me so much, Rebecca. I loved you with all my heart, and you just spit on it. When you cried when Tommy broke up with you when you were 15, I stayed up with you and helped you cry and wipe your tears. When you were sick and bedridden when you were 11, I stayed with you all night taking care of you. Chicken soup and ginger ale on standby because you were scared to be alone. When you started your first day of school, I proudly announced to the world you were my baby girl, and so proud of you for starting your first day of school. And when I saw you for the first time, I knew that I was going to love and protect you, that I would not let you suffer what I endured when I was a child, that when you saw me you could not feel fear, shame, or abuse, but that you would feel love, protection, and respect. Things I never experienced with my own mother. Tears began to fall from Rebecca's eyes as he spoke to her. Do you remember when you were in that car accident? Rebecca nodded. You know, the only thing in my mind was when I heard about it, when I sped through town to get where you were. It was the idea that you could be hurt or worse, and I had to save my baby before that happens. He then looked at Sandra. And then there is you, my love. Tell me, did you and Adam have a laugh every time you took him in our bed? Sandra's face went white. Before you ask, I do have video. Harold brought the remote up and turned on the TV. The image of her and Adam in their marital bed together showed itself on screen. It showed Adam and Sandra having sex in different and clear angles, making no mistake of what's taken place. You spied on me? Harold responded somewhat irritated. Are you seriously upset that I recorded you cheating in our own bed without your permission? Sandra was speechless. I can explain. We can work through this if, oh God, no. Harold, please, this was a mistake. All of it was a mistake, nothing more. Sandra, we already went over what a mistake is. I don't like repeating myself. No, Sandra, you made the choice to sleep with my brother on multiple occasions. One of said occasions resulted in the birth of your daughter, who you still won't let me know who the father is, and then have me raise another man's child believing it was mine. Rebecca filched at hearing her referred to it by Harold. Harold finishes his drink and makes his way to the kitchen, setting the glass in the sink to wash it. He looks at the water washing away the content of the beverage, watching the fluids go down the drain. He then compares it to his marriage going down the drain as well. He then puts his jacket on and makes his way to the door. As he opens it to leave, Sandra yelled out, "Where are you going? We need to talk about this as a family." Harold scoffed. What damn family? Did you not hear what I just said? Did you conveniently forget the events of this past week? I'm getting out of here. That's where I'm going. Because right now, I can't stand to see the sight of either of you. He slammed the door closed and took off in his Camaro. He wanted to get away. No, he needed to get away. He couldn't be under the same roof with these people right now. It was 10 p.m. and he didn't want to go to a bar to drink his sorrow. He wanted to be with a friend at this trying time. And he knew just where to go. Rose was sitting on her couch. Her 1-week-old German Shepherd's a boy and a girl. She named them Lady and Gunter. She never had kids, but so wanted to be a mother. Unfortunate her choice in suitors were anything but good in past years. She didn't date much, but those she did caused her grief she could do without. So, she trusted these beautiful creatures into keeping her company. She loved those dogs the moment she laid eyes on them. She saw them at the shelter. Apparently their mother and other siblings died while she gave birth. The mother gave her life so that these last 2 puppies of the litter could live. They were so beautiful, and Rose could use the company, so she adopted them. She was wearing her red pajamas and black t-shirt when she heard her buzzer go off. She looked at the door camera and saw it was Harold. She immediately unlocked the first door lock, allowing Harold to go the elevator that would take her to her apartment floor. When he knocked on her door, she opened it to see her friend heartbroken. Before she could say anything, he just held on to her and cried. All the emotions he had been holding on to since this whole thing started. The pain he suffered with his own family, the heartbreaking discovery that they thought so little of him, and the affair of his wife and own brother. It was all too much for him, and he finally broke down. All he was feeling he let out in anguish and tears. Rose held him and cared for her friend as she had done so long ago. She held her friend as he cried in her arms without shame or embarrassment. As he cried, she brushed her hand on his head and lightly spoke to him. "It's okay, honey. I got you, it's okay." When he was done, he told her what happened. "I feel like a joke. Like I've been hit by a car and people are just laughing. And the real punchline is the people who are laughing are supposed to be my family." Rose sympathized for her friend. She heard of situation where people were cheated on. She had been through it herself, but she had never saw or knew someone who went through something so cruel. But she knew she would be there for her friend. "Look at me, Harold." Through his tears, Harold complies. "No matter what happens, you got me with you, understand? Just like before, you got me with you." Harold smiled through the tears. "Good seeing you again, partner." Rose smiles back. "Yeah, it is, partner. I got a guest room for you. I figure you want to get some sleep. I'm sure your wife won't mind given the situation." Intended sarcasm left her mouth with disgust, but Harold let out a laugh. No, I would imagine not. Before he got himself ready for bed, he hugged his friend again. Thank you, Rose, for all of it. Rose smiled and kissed his cheek. You would do the same. Good night, Harold. Good night, Rose. And the two went off to their rooms to sleep. Yet as they do, neither can deny the old emotions for each other from long ago was beginning to make its return. The next morning, Harold woke up some bacon and eggs. The smell was intoxicating. It was when he was in the living room he noticed the two puppies, then saw the beautiful sight of Rose cooking him beak feast. She turned and smiled as she saw him. Good morning, handsome. Hope you don't mind spam, chopped onions, and cheese in your eggs. Also got some bacon and toast. Harold starving and thankful that his old girlfriend still had magic when it came to cooking. No complaint from my end. Course they say hunger is the best spice. She playfully throws a dish rag at him. Are you doubting my skills in this fine kitchen, sir? Not at all, madam. Just stating a fact is all. Both have a laugh. Both can't remember the last time they laughed and played together in such a way. Then they realized it was when they were together. Rose gave him his plate on the table with a glass of juice, joining him with her own. So, what are you going to do now? Harold thought become answering. At first, I thought we would be able to work this out somehow. But after reading those letters, seeing those chats and videos, no, there is no working it out. I moved my things to the basement, but eventually I want them out of my house on the plus side. Rebecca is 18, meaning she is no longer a child nor liability. I'm also going to sue Adam for child support and alienation of affection. Also have something planned for my mother. Rose paused as she heard him. I want to be there for you, like we used to. Rose, you already are more than you know. Both noticed and felt the tension in the room. Harold's phone soon went off. He saw it was Rebecca. He hesitantly answered it. What do you want? He answered sternly. Dad, I'm sorry about what happened, okay? You were not meant to find out like this. First of all, I'm not your father, so you have no right to call me that. Also, how was I supposed to find out? Rebecca paused, not knowing what to say. What do you want, Rebecca? Well, as you know, I want to go to college and was wondering how you going to make payments. School is expensive. Harold looked dumbstruck on the phone. Rose waved her hand across his face to see if he was okay. When he recovered, he responded slowly. Let me see if I got this right. You and your mother show me not only how underappreciated I am after all these years, but I'm a cuck raising another man's child. A child who hates me no matter what I sacrificed for her. And the same child is asking me to pay for her college? Rebecca's paused before she answered. Just do it already. Why do you have to be so selfish? By law, you're my dad anyway, and you are obligated to help me. Screw you. You ungrateful maggot. That may have been true a few weeks ago, but you are an adult and on your own. I'm not obligated to do crap. If you want to go to college, get your actual dad to pay for it. You are truly your mother's daughter to be so selfish and self-centered like that. Don't ever contact me again. Harold hung up before she could respond, then blocked her number. After the call, he hung up the phone. He looked at Rose. I must go and get things started. I think. Harold could not deny it, nor could Rose. Those feelings they shared long ago have returned. The look of desire in their eyes were intoxicating. It was no surprise when their lips met again after so long. It was genuine, sensual. There a love and fire in that kiss. Harold suddenly stopped himself, holding Rose away. Harold, I'm sorry. You were hurting and I took advantage. I should have. Harold places his finger on her lips. You have nothing to be sorry about, Rose. I think it fair to say how we felt about each other never went away. Just took a long nap. Rose, I love you. I never stopped. I never stopped loving you either, Harold. From that day, we drove off to now I never stopped. Harold brushed her hair from her eye. A tear soon followed, and he wiped that away too. But I also respect you, Rose, and my vows. I must at least give her the papers before anything happens. And that happens tonight. All I ask is if you want us to happen again, please respect my wish to stay faithful until this is settled. If it's too much, I understand. Rose simply kissed his cheek. I waited over 17 years to get my soulmate back. I can wait a little longer. With that, the two hugged before Harold made his way out, and now felt for the first time something other than despair. He felt hope. He made his way home and showered, preparing for the event at the hotel. As he gets dressed, he looked in the mirror and wondered what happened. But then he knew it didn't matter because it happened. He could only move forward from here on out. When he arrived, he saw caterers and workers getting an event ready. Oh yeah, Rebecca's birthday party is today. Just what I needed, he thought to himself. As he stepped inside his home, he got a call from someone. Seeing the ID, he could not help but sneer. He thought about blocking it, but remembered his phone was tapped as well and sought the recording. "You piece of crap. What have you done?" Harold played dumb. "Hello, Adam. Before you lose your mind on me again. You want to explain what the hell you were talking about?" Adam screamed into the phone. "Don't play dumb with me, you sanctimonious scumsucker. They called me into HR today. A rep from OSA and the Department of Labor were waiting for me along with my supervisor. 3 ladies that had some fun with at work made another complaint. Somehow it stuck. Now I'm under suspension. This isn't supposed to happen." Harold then chimed in. "If your idea of fun was harassing them on a sexual level, that sounds about right. Why wouldn't this happen?" Adam paused, realizing what he may have shared with his brother. He didn't want Harold to know how connected he was, but he could not hide the sheer venom and contempt her had for Harold. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "I'm your brother, Adam. I'm the guy whose wife you screwed. How could you do that to me? You have hated me my entire life. Why? What did I ever do to you?" Adam paused, then responded. "You were born. Dad always loved you. He didn't love you more, mind you, but you weren't even his. That time he had with you should have been mine alone. If Mom just got rid of you before she ever met Dad, things would have been different. And you were so perfect, good grades, and good attendance. You even had the other kids want to be your friend. I just got the brush off being your little brother. So, when I had the opportunity to snag Sandra, I took it. You never knew how to love her like I did. I made her feel alive when you were just focused on what you're going to do after high school. I did what you failed at and focused on her. We had sex the entire time you were in boot camp. By the time you came back, I laughed my butt off, making a cuck out of my idiot brother. I don't know how everything at my job happened, but I know you were involved somehow. You were always jealous of me. I swear to God, if I get fired or anything, I'll kill you. You understand? I'll have you removed you from this earth, do you hear me?" Harold merely smiled at the phone, thanking Marcus in his mind for convincing him to have his phone tapped as well. "I hear you loud and clear, Adam." Adam took a few breaths before speaking. He was arrogant enough to think he could intimidate Harold, but Harold didn't give a hint of his delusion and just let him dig his own grave by speaking. "Good, now that's settled. You are going to the party with Sandra and Rebecca. You are going to play the happy cuck husband and smile for everyone. And you are not going to cause any bullcrap and let your family maintain the image that everything is okay. Do we understand each other?" "Crystal," Harold replied. Adam then hung up. Harold laughed. One for Adam, thinking he was afraid of him. Harold could beat Adam to a pulp without effort. Also, the treasure trove of proof Adam gave him when it come to pressing charges of parental fraud as well as alienation of affection. That along with DNA proof would be epic. At first, Harold wasn't going to deal with the party. In fact, he considered having it canceled. But now, a smile came to his face, and he realized the golden opportunity that presented itself. Time to show the world my loving and caring family. Harold arrived in his freshly washed and polished Camaro. He handed the keys to the valet, who was in awe of the vehicle. Harold joked with the kid. "Easy, my guy. Watch the droll, I just had it waxed." The young man was embarrassed and was about to apologize when Harold gave him a $100 tip. "Don't worry about it. It is a nice car. And thank you for appreciating it and the work you do. Is it possible you can park it somewhere close to the exit? I don't think I'll be staying long." The young man smiled and agreed to his request. Upon entering, he found that the ballroom was extravagant and beautiful. It had an ice sculpture in the center of the hall, a bar right next to it. Waiters were serving drinks to those with purple bracelets, showing they are over 21. A DJ was playing music as people dance on the dance floor. Harold had to admit this was amazing. He then saw his friend and lawyer Charles, and his PI Marcus. Marcus wore regular clothes that gave the impression he was maintenance. Charles wore his fresh suit. Harold called Marcus and Charles over and told them the situation. He told them to set the equipment up. If anyone asked, they are the help. Soon the guests began to arrive, including Sandra, Rebecca, and even his mother, Janet. Janet was always vain, and it showed more now. He slim build but tacky clothing and long nails. Despite her beauty that she still somehow retained after 60 years, it was held on by a string, and her character was rotten to the core. When she saw Harold, she walked towards him. "So, glad you came to your senses to be here for Rebecca's special day. At least you can do something right." Harold didn't say anything. He merely took his drink and mingled with the other guests. Guests included her friends she graduated with from school, her current boyfriend, aunts, cousins, uncles, even Harold's grandfather from his mother's side. He didn't really see him too much, but in the rare times he was around him, he may have been hard at times, but he was fair and kind to him. He also noticed his mom was on her best behavior when he was around. Now in his 80s cane in hand, he still has sway on the family. The party went on nicely. The DJ played the hits of today, evening dance, and had a good time. And the bar served 21 and up, only under strict supervision. As the night went on, it was time for the birthday speech. Adam somehow arrived right in time for the speeches. Adam gave Harold a smirk as he passed him, before giving his daughter a hug. Sandra avoided Harold the whole night, a look of shame painted on her face. His mother looked at Harold with disdain as always. Friends and family spoke at the mic for Rebecca's big day. Some gave her words of wisdom. Others told crazy and funny stories and time they shared together. Adam also gave a speech for his favorite niece. Even though 5 people here specifically know the truth, when it was time for Rebecca's speech, she looked at Harold with genuine disdain. She then began her speech. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the party." Applause erupted at the greeting. Harold just took a drink of his beverage when he felt a tug at his arm. Marcus spoke up. "Everything is ready to go. Also, nice move making this an 18 and up party." Harold smiled. "Yeah, it was." Rebecca continued her speech, an evil smile aimed at Harold. "I look at all family and friends here, but I got to admit I wonder what family is really. I don't think it's constrained by blood alone. If that's the case, you can be let down by your own dad. Take mine, for example." A light suddenly illuminated around Harold, a slight glint of annoyance on his face. Not really for the speech. He reached a point where he could care less about what any of these people could say. "You see, I want to help people and become a nurse. I want to heal the sick and needy. But my scornful loser father doesn't want to help me. Him and my mom got into an argument, and I must pay for it. So, to hurt her, he makes me pay for his mistake." Father of the Year, ladies and gentlemen. What kind of family, or dad for that matter, won't be there to support his daughter's dream? The mood became tense at this once joyous party. There were gasps and judgmental stares looking right at Harold. But despite the tension, Harold was as calm as a cucumber. Suddenly, Harold began to clap, slowly and methodically, and slowly made his way to the center of the backyard. "Brilliant. My daughter, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's rich." The crowd grew silent. There were no more jeers of laughter or even gasps. Everyone just fell silent as they watched and listened. Now everyone, this bundle of joy called my daughter is something else. You know, I begged my sergeant to see the birth of my daughter. I traveled 1,500 miles to see my little girl come into this world. From the moment I let eyes on her, I decided there wasn't anything I wouldn't do for her. She was my heart, sun and moon. We used to hang out at work when I brought her on Basque. My unit always adored her. They kind of made her their adopted daughter. He then turns to his daughter. "My dear Rebecca, I don't know what happened to you, or what made you hate me the way you do, but know that I truly loved you." With that, he took out a remote and played the projector. In it were the messages that she knew Harold was not her father. Every conversation she thought of was private. How she only used him for his money, and how she hid her mother's and uncle's affair. How she would talk to Adam and address him as dad. How she recounted when she found out her father was not her biological father and made fun of him. Called him a loser after he helped her, loved her, raised her, was there for her when no one else was. Rebecca looked horrified. "Oh, but wait, there is more of my loving family. For example, let's talk about my wife. I loved this woman since high school, give her my all. And while I was fighting for our country, she was fighting an itch with my brother." Then video of his wife and brother having sex in their marital bed. How his brother mocked and made fun of Harold while having sex with his wife. Going on family trips that didn't include Harold on Harold's dime. Chat logs and videos on how they're going to rob him of all his funds and get him kicked out his own home in a divorce. How they professed their love for each other in their letters, and Harold was just an inconvenience to them. When Sandra saw all of this, she screamed in shock and shame. Before anything else happened, Harold made his way towards his wife and handed her a brown vanilla envelope. "I want a divorce, Sandra. I sold the house too, being that it is in my name, and we are in an at-fault state. You have no say in the matter. As we are speaking, the locks have been changed, and any items you want you have until the end of the week to get your belongings. Believe me, I'm being more generous than you deserve. You get to keep your 401k as I do mine, and our marital assets are split down the middle. I even will share the profits of the house, which I only sold for $2,000. So hey, you got money for groceries and gas. I sold it so cheap because money-wise I'm just fine. But also, I want nothing to do with the place that is filled with lies and fake memories. Also, I want nothing to do with you, Sandra. What you did was selfish and cruel no matter how you look at it. You may not want to have hurt me, but that thought didn't stop you when you let my brother screw you and allowed me raising his own daughter who took cruel joy in being cruel towards me when she could. That's it, Sandra. If you fight me in this, I swear to you, and everyone witnessing this, I will destroy you. In an at-fault state with the evidence I shown and the evidence I didn't, not only will you lose, but I will take from you for everything you got. Adam will have to sell you to his buddies just to make rent. And maybe your daughter could wash dishes as you sell yourself for ends met. You 304? With that, she could not even stay as she ran out of the ballroom in embarrassment, her face covered with her hands, her daughter soon following suit. Harold began moving throughout the event with the microphone, as if he was performing a show to the shocked crowd. Now we come to my blood-related family. Now is my thought-to-be daughter Becca pointed out, blood does not make you family. You hit the nail on the head with that one, I tell you. Meet my brother Adam. Now, other than the scumbag wife thief that we all know he is, let goes another route, the beginning. You see, I'm a year older than my brother, half-brother I should say. I was raised by this man Trevor Jacobs. Images of Trevor begin to fill the screen. You see, out of everyone in my family, I can honestly say he is the only one that loved me. My bio dad left me before I was born, but we'll get to that story in a bit. Trevor raised and loved me as his own, and I'm proud to say everything I am in large parts to that man. Then Adam was born. Not sure why my brother hated me so much. Not sure why he made me a cuck and have me raise his kid. So, I let him tell me. With that, he played the recording he made with Adam earlier, revealing the true character of him to all. They hear when he told him he was jealous of his brother, how he wishes that he was dead, how he had no right to his father's love or money, that it should have been mine, how he threatened to kill him. Harold looks at his brother. Oh, Adam, you don't have to worry about why I'm your brother anymore. Because as far as I'm concerned, you were dead to me the moment I found out you were screwing my wife. Adam then rushed him and took a wide swing at him. But Harold ducked and then delivered a strong low right hook to his rib, causing Adam to crumble to the ground. At that point, Marcus put Adam in cuffs, as he was on duty protecting his client with witnesses everywhere. Marcus spoke to Adam as he was handcuffed. Sir, due to your actions, you are being detained until the police arrive for my safety and your own. Adam just groaned from the punch to the side as he struggled to stay conscious. Harold then walked up to him and gave him an envelope. You've been served, you scum sucker. Adam gave him a look of pure hate as Adam walked back to the center of the room. When he got there, he turned his attention to his mother. And then there is my mother, or who I would like to just call Janet, because oh boy does she hate me. Now there is the whole her knowing about the affair and being completely okay with her son being made a cuck by her favorite son. Images of her chats and video of her openly embracing Adam and Sandra's affair for all to see. Even chats between her and Rebecca condemning and criticizing him for letting his woman find satisfaction somewhere else since she can't find it with her own husband. At this point, the crowd began to look at the family with even disdain if they weren't doing it already. But the real juicy stuff? Harold then pulled out a brown leather book with a lock on it. Janet's mouth dropped. You see, Mom had a diary. She had it since I was born. And man, the stuff inside there, I tell you. My father, I was told, was a very selfish scum sucker who dipped and ran when he was told I was pregnant. That is not entirely true. You see, I did some digging and found out my father was a man named Alex Thompson. Now Alex and Janet over there met in, you guessed it, high school. Anyway, they were in here senior year when Mommy Dearest said she wanted kids. Now Daddy-O clearly said he doesn't want kids and would rather wait until he's ready for that in his life. Mind you, he always used protection and insisted Mom be on the pills if protection wasn't available. Well, Mom said screw that and decided to lie and tell Alex she was on the pill. Now why did he believe her, you ask? Because he trusted the woman he loved. He was going to marry this girl, at least until he found out she was pregnant. Now Janet was happy and joyous. She was finally going to get her happy family. And she told Alex she was keeping the baby. But you see, Alex had some very powerful parents, and they didn't like the idea of their son being baby-trapped by a crazy lady. So, they hired their best lawyers to give Mommy some bad news. You can have your baby, but you're having it alone. Alex signed his parental rights away, robbing crazy lady of her dream family. From then on, she hated me truly, and I wasn't even born yet. Oh, she wanted to get rid of me, without question. But Grandpa was from some serious rich money too, and although Alex dipped from his responsibilities, he made sure his darling daughter Janet wasn't going to follow suit. He threatened to inherit her. Rubbing her out of the will would leave a pretty penny. So, she had me. You know from what my dad and the doctor who pulled me out said, she didn't even want to hold me. And then there is the whopper of what the hell. See, Janet had a friend of hers in the neighborhood. He used to come by and fix the drain pipes when Dad wasn't home. And for those confused, yes, She cheated on my dad. One day I saw her friend, let's call him Rusty. Rusty liked hanging out with me, particularly when mom or dad wasn't in the room. Rusty one day came in my room when I was asleep. I think I was 5. Anyway, I woke up to see Rusty with his hand touching me in ways no kid should be touched. When I told mom about this, she responded by slapping me and threatening to send me away so no one could find me, not even Trevor, and to stop lying. I thought mothers were supposed to protect their kids like mama bears. Guess I got the throwaway treatment by my mom? People were crying now, and Harold let out a few of his own. Now before I continue, you're probably thinking, why should we believe you? I'm glad you asked that. Eyes on the screen, people. And all the video backing what he claimed came to be a recording of her father recounting what was said. Her own words as she complained to Adam and Sandra, how she wished he was never born and hated her father for not allowing her to get an abortion without risking to get thrown out the will. Even words of her diary were shown on the screen, her unique handwriting evident. The crowd was now somber. Some cried for what Harold went through. Others shown disdain for his family that hurt him so. He then walked up to his mother. You know, I had no say in being born. And the only real family I had wasn't even related by blood. But what I do know is that I don't want you in my life ever again. I don't want to hear your phone call, see your text. I want you out of my life completely. And when you die taking that last breath in that slow death rattle, I want you to know that you will die alone. And that if you just weren't ruled by your hate toward me, you would be surrounded by love and warmth and people who will miss you. But in the meantime, love you as you're still alive. Now know that the only people that will be there will be the people waiting to pick up your corpse, you cruel, malignant show. Janet was stunned at his words and could not say anything. With that, he placed the microphone on its stand and spoke a finale time to the crowd. Thank you for coming, everybody, have a good night. As the police arrived to take Adam away, he walked to Sandra and Rebecca. We no longer have anything to discuss. As far as I'm concerned, we are no longer family in any sense of the word with what you two put me through. If you have any questions, talk to my lawyer. I want you both out of my house and take that thing you call a mother-in-law with you. When Janet finally got her barring, she tried to berate him. You sorry excuse of a man. You think you're better than me? If that's the case, the moment you walk out of here, you are no son of mine. Harold turned around with the emotionless look and said, I'll gladly take that role. Harold then turned and flipped her the bird. Harold then gave Marcus a hug and handshake. Thank you for everything. Marcus smiled. If you could let me have some PTO out of this, I'd really appreciated it. Harold smiled. Consider your 2 weeks worth installed immediately. Just let us know when you want to use a day. Marcus smiled but asked, You going to be all right? Something tells me you don't want to be any near this place. You got somewhere to go? Harold smiled. Yeah, I got a place. Rose awoke to the buzz for her apartment door. When she saw it was Harold, she let him through as before. When she opens the door, they didn't say anything. Suddenly, they both embraced each other, kissing with such passion and love not seen or felt in years. They begin to remove their clothing as they make their way to the bedroom, where they make love for the rest of the night. The next morning, Harold woke up with Rose laying on his chest. When she awoke, she gave him a loving smile and kiss. Good morning, sleepyhead. Good morning, beautiful. She continued to lay on his chest as she began to talk. So, how did last night go? Harold took a breath, like seeing a beautiful lie die in front of me, and somehow still miss it when the truth came out. But then he looked into her blue eyes, then spoke. But at least for once, the truth is actually better than the lie could ever be. Rose gave him a sensual kiss. She looked at him and spoke. I love you, Harold, and I never want to lose you again. I will fight the anybody of thing to keep that from happening again. Harold held her and kissed her back. That goes for you too, beautiful. However, I now realize I have an issue and concern. Rose looked puzzled and concerned. What is it? I have abruptly sold my house due to recent events and found myself homeless. If possible, could I stay here for a bit? It won't be long, I promise. I just need to. Before he could finish, she kissed him again and again. You can stay here as long as you want. You don't even have to ask, you jerk. Both laughed in the bed as their passion for each other grew. They made love throughout the day. As the week went by, Harold begun his new life. He moved his items from the house the next day and was done by the end of it. He left Sandra's and Rebecca's things in a storage container in front of the house. One day, Harold was returning to Rose's from work when he got a call from Charles. Harold, it's Sandra. She says she will sign whatever you want when questions asked, but you must talk to her. Harold thought about it. He didn't really need Sandra's cooperation. He could crush her in the divorce. What he said the other night wants an empty threat. But then he realized he just wanted her out of his life in every way. He wanted to start things fresh with Rose, a love he thought lost long ago. He's not even out of his 30s yet, and he wants to spend that time with someone who loves and respects him. And he wanted it done right and clean. Okay, Charles, send me when and where to meet her. The next day, Harold meets up with Charles in his office. Sandra and her lawyer were ready to sign the papers. Despite her lawyer's protest, she agreed to sign them if given the chance to speak. When asked, both lawyers left the room, leaving Sandra and Harold. Sandra broke the 2 minutes of silence. I know it seems meaningless now. I just want to say how sorry I truly am. You may not believe this, and I honestly don't blame you, but I do love you. I cannot justify the things I have done to you, nor how I let Rebecca treat you over the years. Harold looked at her. Was it something that I did or didn't do? Sandra nearly yelled. No, God no, Harold. This is all on me. Sandra then got up and called the lawyers in. As soon as they arrived, she signed the papers as witnesses. With tears in her eyes, she tells him that Rebecca will be staying with her, and apologized one more time, then walked out of his life forever. 3 months later, Harold received a call from an unknown number. It was a lawyer wishing to meet. She meets him at Charles' office. Hello, Mr. Jacobs, thank you for seeing me. I'm informing you that your grandfather, Michael Williams, has disinherited you mother based on the events of what happened the other night. He has instructed me to tell you due to him being unable to speak due to his condition. My dear grandson, I'm so sorry I did not protect you from what you experienced. I was angry of your mother and her behavior, but I had no idea you have suffered so much. She kept me from you, and in doing so, we could not build a stronger bond than we already had. I'm giving you my trust of the will in the amount of $500 million. Do with it as you will. I only ask that you use it wisely and use it to build rather than destroy. Your mother was once privy to it, but with everything found out, I'm giving you her share as well as the money that was going to you anyway. My only wish is that I could take you fishing by that lake one last time. Sharing time with you was among the best moments of my life, and I must thank you for that, my grandson. I was proud of you the day you wore the same uniform as I, and then day you provided for what you thought was your family. May this gift I give you start a new chapter with an actual family to match. I love you, Harold Jacobs, and I'm so proud of the man you have become. Sincerely, old man. Harold shed some tear when he read it. Not that he got so much money, but that there was someone other than Trevor that loved him, a blood relative. He thought his grandfather stopped seeing him because he didn't love him, but it was his mother that kept him from him. He told Rose the news and she was happy for him. Then she surprised him. We are getting you a prenup as soon as possible if we get married. Harold was about to speak, but she held up his hand. Harold, I love you, and I know that you love me too. But I also respect you and know that based on what you told me, you deserve to be with someone who is trustworthy and loyal to only you. Let me do this, my love. Let me show you that I'm in love with my soulmate and not his wallet. Harold could not help but smile when he heard that. Okay, beautiful, but I picked the dinner on our honeymoon. Rose came and kissed him. Deal. As time went on, a lot of things happened. Harold's former family is ostracized from everyone. They were so disgusted by the way they treated him, they wanted nothing to do with them. Adam lost his job due to the sexual harassment charges, but mostly because of the scandals his company was a part of. Not to mention the alienation of affection lawsuit and back pay of child support of taking care of a child. Not only did he lose money from the company, but any money given to him by trust or wills. When it was over, the only thing he could afford was a trailer in the outskirts of the city. Sandra was charged with parental fraud and would have faced jail time, but Harold spoke on her behalf to the judge, his last kind act for her. As a result, she was put on probation and told that she was to get pregnant again. A DNA test was mandatory. She had no choice but to move in with Adam since all her funds were now gone due to court costs and lawyer fees. Rebecca was never the same again after her party. All her friends wanted nothing to do with her. They could not believe they could befriend someone so cruel and heartless. When Rebecca realized that not even her own father loved, but just used her to hurt Harold, she was crushed all over again. For years she insulted and bashed a man who raised her as her own, only to be brushed away from her actual father, whose love she was desperate for. She could not afford school, so she became a dishwasher for the same hotel she had her birthday in. Rebecca tried to ask Harold for forgiveness, but he wanted nothing to do with her. Janet was lost the moment Harold berated her in the birthday party. No one in the family spoke to or of her again. When Harold left, her father slapped her and disowned her for what she had done to Harold. For someone as Janet, image is everything. And when image is damaged beyond repair, she may as well be dead. She ended up having a heart attack in a hotel room. And like he said, the only ones who were there were the ones who picked up her body. No one but the priest and grave digger arrived for her funeral. 7 months later, a very pregnant but beautiful Rose walked down the aisle. It was an outside wedding. The spring leaves and breeze present. Her white dress with flower engravings on its edges, matching with the wilderness around her. It was a small, intimate wedding. Charles was the best man, while Marcus was among the groomsmen, while Linda and Marcus' wife was among the bridesmaids. The wedding may not have been extravagant, but it was beautiful, just like Rose and Harold wanted. Months later, Harold watched as his beautiful son and daughter, Jack and Sally, were born. Jack had Harold's nose, Nancy had his eye. On Rose's insisted, both children were DNA tested. Although both were Harold's, he didn't need a test to know this was his family. "My," Harold cried as he said the words again, and he embraced his family, his wife, his son, his daughter. "I love you so much. Thank you for bringing them home. Thank you for being in my life." Rose hugged them all as well. "Thank you for being you, baby. We love you too. With all our hearts we love you. And I promise I will show and remind as long as I can still breath." Harold embraced his family, thankful to finally have what he'd have for so long, the love of a family. 1 year later, Harold is sitting on the bench overlooking their large backyard, watching his beautiful wife, Rose, play with Gunter, as Lady just lays next to him with Jack and Sally. Their innocent smiles warm his heart. When Rose comes back, she lands a sensual kiss to his lips. With their funds, the couple built 3 more stores in the city, while keeping the main one open. They kept the apartment and rented it out in case a new employee needed it, and gave a real nice break as far as rent was concerned. Harold ended up buying stocks for the company he worked for. He did so well in stocks, he ended being the owner of the company he worked for, and made Marcus national director. He also has even more sites nationwide. Harold looked at his beautiful wife in her Billy Goth red and black sundress. "That I'm the luckiest man on the earth." Dear listeners, a big thank you to Travis Davis, aka Malicious Logic 37, for his contribution, and lots of love to all of you for being part of this literary journey with us. If you'd like to share your work, please send it to the email in the description box, and we'll publish it on Lost Love Chronicles. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe.